Hello, in today's video we will be looking at some stories from r/IDontWorkHereLady, and we are going to see what Karen has been up to lately. No, my private number isn't the 24-hour helpline for a company I've never worked at, even if you paid them extra to include it in your service agreement. On tablet, native English speaker, hopefully formatting okay, but there's probably a typo somewhere. TLDR at the bottom. This is a long one, took over a decade in reality too, so I'll introduce the cast as they appear. About 20 years ago I got a new job. Turned all keen and excited, and one of my first tasks is to fix someone else's comprehensive fuck up as quickly and quietly as possible. I seem to have made a career out of that. My new employer, hereafter known as IS Incorporated, made various kinds of industrial machines for different parts of a particular industry, and there's one sitting on the shop floor now that's almost finished, but has a subsystem that just doesn't work. They've done plenty of machines with that feature before, but this one is different because the sales rep has managed to get the customer to pay tens of thousands extra for the option of 10th part having its own independent drive system instead of a mechanical one coupled to the rest of the machine. No real point in doing that, but the same is true for metallic paint on your car, and if the customer wants it, let them pay for it. IS Incorporated have never actually built one of these things with a separate X drive before, so the guys who added it to the options list, we'll call them Clown and Clown's boss, Senior Clown, have spent the last 6 months *CKING around trying to build one. There are now 2 weeks left before delivery and they've blown through the budget long ago. So I'm called into my new boss's office, along with the 2 clowns, and told that the single most important thing this week and next is to make it work. We hired you knowing you're an expert in Y technology, true, so that should be fine. Sure, I'll make it top priority and get right on it. Senior Clown assures me that it's basically good to go, just needs some fine tuning. So I look at the machine. There is zero possibility that what they've done can ever be made to work. Literally nothing is salvageable. I can't go into the technicalities without giving clues to the industry and the identities of the guilty, but for a non-technical analogy, imagine someone is tasked with making an omelette, and they decide to do it by mixing breakfast cereal with beer and then setting it on fire. For some reason that doesn't work, so they get a different cereal and more expensive beer and set fire to that. Rinse and repeat for 6 months, while assuring the high-ups and end customer that the build is going well. Honestly, their solution needed to break the laws of physics to even come close to working, and was basically an exercise in filling the scrap bin. So I report this as tactfully as possibly to new boss, causing Senior Clown to hate me with the fire of 1,000 suns. I quickly learned he hated being caught out. Clown was actually a lot more chill, just utterly hopeless at 90% of his job. What Senior Clown thought they were going to do to meet the delivery date without having someone else build a working one, I never found out. Fix it, says new boss. The machine has to ship on XX day at the latest. Buy whatever you need, just make it work. So I did. Completely re-engineered the mechanical and electrical system, and programmed the extra control gear from scratch in 2 weeks. No time to experiment and optimize, so I went with parts from suppliers I was 100% familiar with and built in plenty of spare capacity if there was any doubt. For example, there was a component where I could use a product range that I knew well, but it wasn't suitable for the chemical environment on the machine. Or I could try a new similar product that was chemical proof, but that I hadn't used before. 10 days to go, you said? I use the older type and put them in chemical proof boxes. Takes a bit more space, but I can spec the stuff in confidence and move on. The thing was done and worked okay, and off it goes to the customer on the due date. After that the separate drive was taken off the options list because Senior Clown wasn't going to use my system, even though it was just a case of ordering duplicate parts and following the build manual I'd written as I went, and they knew the Clown Tech version wouldn't work. Scan forward about 3 years and IS Incorporated was taken over by someone else and merged into another firm. New management decide that a couple of market segments aren't things they want to be doing anymore, including this type of machine, and get out of the business. All this is above board, and the customers are kept informed. It all takes a year or so. In the general rearrangement, Clown gets a new job somewhere else, and Senior Clown takes a cushy early retirement deal. Ziz Incorporated also used to service these machines at the customer sites, something that was needed every 6 months or so. So they sold the rights to do this one of the sales reps who's also taking early retirement. Yes, the same one who originally sold this machine. Ex-sales rep gets all the documentation, parts at wholesale rate or free, and manpower help for the first 12 months or so. I understand he also took on Senior Clown as a consultant, because he'd been in charge of building the things for all those years, but that was a deal between them. Life moves on another few years and I also leave Ziz Incorporated. I'm on reasonable terms, so I work 3 months notice to hand over properly, and for a few months afterwards get the occasional email from ex-colleagues wanting to pick my brains. After that it's purely social stuff for big number birthdays or retirements, major drinking sessions, or whatever. Something else I should mention is that for my entire time at Ziz Incorporated, I had 2 mobile phones. A work one paid for by Ziz Incorporated that was used only for business and was given back when I left, and my own personal one which kept the same number before, during and after, and that never ever got used for business. Ours had my private one listed in my file for emergencies or whatever, but that was it. About 5 years after I'd finally left Ziz Incorporated, I get a phone call at 7 AM on a Sunday morning. After a big night out with lots of beer, because how could it be any other way? The guy on the other end knows my name, and while very insistent is also 100% polite, so I'll let it play out while I wake up enough to understand what's happening. This bloke is the plant manager for the customer who bought that particular machine a dozen years ago, and he has a big problem. These machines have to run several hours every day, unless they're being serviced, and then you need to plan round that well in advance, including subcontracting work to competitors if necessary, and it isn't working today, because something has gone wrong and or worn out in the system I engineered. The system is fundamental to the machine, so it isn't running, staff are standing around, product can't be made, and they are losing a couple of thousand an hour. If it isn't running tomorrow, material will start going to waste, and they'll be at risk of losing major contracts. Oh, why are you telling me, and how did you get this number? Plant manager goes on to say that if I can't diagnose and fix it over the phone, he needs me on a plane to him now. Again, why are you telling me, and how did you get this number? Plant manager, I know you designed this system, and this is the number ex-sales rep gave me for tech support when you took over from Ziz Incorporated. So I explain that I don't work for ex-sales rep. I also don't work for Ziz Incorporated anymore. I haven't been involved in the industry at all for half a decade. This is my private number and it's my day off from the unrelated job I have now. I don't owe anyone anything. Turns out ex-sales rep has been charging them a hefty annual fee for the right to ring my number if they have a problem. Guaranteed service, 24 hours a day, 52 weeks a year. Plant manager even has my private address on the service agreement he signed. And while ex-sales rep has been pocketing the money all these years, probably the best part of a decade, the original system has continued to soldier on with basically no maintenance until something went kaput today. Plant manager is simultaneously horrified, bust a blood vessel angry and hideously embarrassed at being taken in by ex-sales rep. Going from memory, I tell him how to check various standard things that might have gone wrong, and what I can remember of the error codes, but I don't have the documentation, the program, the service tools, etc. Oh, and this is 100% not my problem. He takes all this with surprisingly good grace, apologizes and rings off. First thing Monday morning, I ring Ziz Incorporated. I've kept in touch enough to know that new boss has since been promoted to managing director, so I ask to speak to new boss. No, I don't care if new boss is busy. Yes, this is a matter that requires their immediate personal attention. Yes, I did used to work for you. Of course I'll hold. New boss is surprised to hear from me, and even more surprised when I tell them who rang me on Sunday morning. Since ex-sales rep never had my private number, let alone anything like my address, even new boss didn't any reason to know that. Both new boss and I are pretty convinced that ex-sales rep must have got it from my file somehow. More than embarrassing for Ziz Incorporated, this is the kind of confidentiality breach that can result in criminal charges, as well as being straight up fraudulent and a very clear violation of the terms ex-sales rep got that business from them on. and not a good advertisement to any customers in the industry that Ziz Incorporated still do other types of work for. New boss promises to investigate and get back to me. About a day later I got a written apology from Ziz Incorporated. New boss has personally investigated, including speaking to ex-sales rep, and while they're not telling me what they found out or accepting liability, I can rest assured that this will absolutely never happen again. It didn't, and next time I saw some of my ex-colleagues in the pub, all their gossip was about a particular long-time employee who'd suddenly decided one Monday lunchtime that they needed to resign immediately and clear their desk the same day, losing all their redundancy entitlement in the process, probably worth 9 months' salary. And yes, that employee would have had access to the hour files. I never bothered to dig deep and get the gory details, but I understand that ex-sales rep wound up on the receiving end of some large bills for consequential loss from plant manager. Sell your house in hurry-sized bills as the more palatable alternative to being sued for fraud, and then still had to close his business because that kind of news spreads really fast for some reason and people stop trusting you to service their machines. TL. Doctor, ex-colleague sells my private contact details to his customer claiming I run 24-hour service line for him. Doesn't get found out until I get a call years after leaving the industry. Nobody gets 24-hour service and the crook loses their house. Edit. A lot of people have asked why I didn't bill ex-sales rep for the contract when I found out about it, or charge the end customer a fistful of cash to go and fix the machine, or just sue somebody. Anybody. A lot of other commenters have covered at least some of that ground in various places, but I thought I'd put my reasons here. The existing deal. I wanted nothing to do with this. It was straight up fraud. I didn't want to even appear to do anything that might look as though I had any part in it. I don't know exactly what service was offered / paid for, how long this had been going on, or how much was being paid, except that it totaled thousands. I didn't have ex-sales rep's number, and I didn't want it. If things hadn't gone well with Ziz Incorporated and I needed to somehow defend myself, I did of course have plant manager's number, because he rang me, gouging the end customer to fix their machine. I haven't seen this thing in over a decade. I don't know what has been done to it, or why it has broken. I don't have any documentation whatsoever. When I originally did this I was an employee, not a contractor, and documentation belonged to Ziz Incorporated, who are my ex-employer. It's this to do with as they wish, including destroy or sell it. I don't even know if it is fixable. Legal action. I had no grounds for complaint against the end customer. They were the victim of fraud. I did have a decent case with them. Again, ex-sales rep for misrepresentation, fraud, potential damage to my professional reputation, etc, etc. But you're talking about a case I'd have to fund in another jurisdiction against a party who probably spent most of the money long ago, b has already lied big time and will probably keep doing it, and c is about to get their *RSE sued out from under them. I probably also had a case against Ziz Incorporated for negligence or similar in securing my personal data. Effectively they were innocent but potentially liable anyway. But they've been immediately helpful and then spent senior management time on my behalf squashing this flat with hobnail boots. It was absolutely not in my interest to get my only ally's backs up with a speculative lawsuit. Finally, thanks all for reading. It honestly amazes me that a few days of my ancient history has attracted so much interest. Thank you for watching. Please like, comment what subreddit you will like to see stories from, and please subscribe.